Boys, we are cooking, coming off a 4-1 weekend in the Premier League last week. We're betting well, we have great reads, and you know what? So far in the season, we're up 8 units of profit through 9 weeks. And my goal over the course of the season was to be up 38 units of profit. So we're basically on track. Absolutely loving the way that things have been going. Glad to have a very strong bounce back week. And let's just review Game Week 9 and we'll move on to Game Week 10. And if this is your first time on the channel, how's it going? It's your boy, Con GFPL, and welcome to the journey, boys. Game week 9 was a smashing success, picking up 4 wins out of 5 bets. I absolutely love that. And the one that we lost was actually low-key one of my favorite ones because we had Garnacho to have 2 shots and get one of them on target. And he's been hitting that pretty consistently. He's been Manchester United's most consistent and he's been their shining light realistically. And he had 2 major chances. One of them, he put them off the crossbar. And then the other one, he actually just shot it wide on a counterattack. He was like breaking away against the goalie one-on-one and he just missed the net, which is really surprising because usually he at least hits the target. The volume was there, that's fine. Just a little bit unlucky. Next time he'll definitely get it on target. So I'm not worried about that one, even though we lost. The next one was Brian Mbumo. He's been so consistent at home, especially against the bottom half teams. And he actually got 2 returns again against a lower half club. Man, he's so consistent at home. Love that about him. He's pretty much returning in every game, not even just the home games, not even just the games against the easier teams. He's just been so consistent, so talismanic for Brentford. Happy that we took him there. Really good value on it as well. The third one is actually going to be a 2-unit play, and this was the riskiest one. People were the most scared about it, but honestly, this just made sense. We took the underdog and Liverpool double chance, given that Arsenal had injuries to Saliba and Odegaard, so Liverpool picked up results at the end of the game, so we were betting on Liverpool to win or draw and under 5 goals in the match. Now, if we look at this from an expected goals perspective, there was only 2.5 xg in the game, but there was actually 4 goals in the match. So if we lost the under 5 goals, I would have been so mad. But of course, we hit the under. That just made sense, especially whenever Arsenal are playing football against other big clubs. The under just makes sense. And then backing Liverpool for the value, that was really good. Glad that we did that. Good odds and 2 units as well. That was the best bet. That's the best part. It really hits different when the best bet hits. And then we had Nottingham Forest double chance and Wood to get that shot on target. He's been so consistent, so talismanic. Maybe we should just continue to bet him until, he doesn't hit this bet. But the Nottingham Forest are in the top half this year. Wood is scoring goals whenever he gets chances. I mean, he's just so hot right now. And then the last one was Holland to score and City to win against one of the worst teams in the league. Just makes sense. You know what's funny? We actually lost 2 units on Holland last week, and we only gained 1 unit of profit back. So technically, on our Holland bets so far this year, we're actually down, which is crazy. But anyway, it was a really solid game week. I think we made over 4 units of profit, so absolutely love that. Taking our overall record to plus 8 units on the season. Love that. And if we're looking at the future that we placed in preseason, we put 5 units on Raya to win the Golden Glove at 3.0, and those odds are now at 2.2. So we got really good value on that. And with Alisson being injured and Ederson just struggling to keep clean sheets, I mean, we should be cooking there. I know Ederson kept his 2nd clean sheet at home to Southampton, but I'm really honestly not worried about him. I'm only really worried about the value players of like Pickford or Onana. If those guys become consistent clean sheet defenses, then I'll start to stress about it. But realistically, Raya has lots of margin for error and he'll still cash this as long as he stays fit. So really liking the future. A great weekend, and let's move on to game week 10. Our first best bet takes us out to the City ground where Nottingham Forest are going to be at home hosting West Ham. And in this match, we're going to be backing Nottingham Forest to win or draw, Wood to get a shot on target. And you know what? That was the same bet that we placed last week. And the odds have dropped drastically because I think even the bookies are catching on to how good Nottingham Forest have been playing. And so in order to get the odds of above 2.0, I'm going to be adding in the under 5 goals in the match. That's really just the icing on the cake. And that's actually hit in all of the games so far this season for Nottingham Forest. That's why I'm adding that in. But the core of the bet is the same thing that we were taking last week. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's why we're going to be backing Nottingham Forest to win or draw. Now, in this match, if we look at the underlying data for both sides, it's pretty close, where we have West Ham, that's the slightly better attack, creating 1.5 xg per game, whereas Nottingham Forest are a slightly worse attack, creating only 1.25 xg per game. So you got to give West Ham the advantage. They're 20% better from the underlying attacking data. But from the defensive data, Nottingham Forest stand out like a sore thumb because they're only conceding 1 xg per game, whereas West Ham are conceding 1.7 XG per match. So they're 70% worse defensively. And that's why when I'm looking at the underlying data overall, I would just be backing Nottingham Forest in this game. And you're adding in the fact that they're at home. It just really makes sense to be backing Nottingham Forest, especially given that West Ham have been very underwhelming so far this season. Now, if I told you in preseason that I'm going to be backing Nottingham Forest when they're playing against West Ham, I would have thought that you'd be crazy, but that's just the way the season has gone. Nottingham Forest are hot, and you know what? This is the type of team that a lot of people had in the relegation battle, but they are sitting, I think, in 6th or 7th in the table at this point. They're in the top half for sure, which is crazy. And West Ham have been very poor, very underwhelming overall. Fulkrug, their signing, has been injured and hasn't really been settled into the team properly. And their second best player in Mohamed Kudus is actually going to be suspended for this match. So they're only going to be reliant on Jared Bowen. And his only goal last week came from a penalty. So as long as Nottingham Forest can avoid that, and I saw the way that Alex Moreno defended Mo Salah at Anfield, I know that he can do a very good job in terms of stifling Jared Bowen. So I think that Nottingham Forest will have the advantage. I really like their fullbacks. They have a very good center defensive partnership as well. Their goalie's been solid this year. I just feel like it makes sense to be backing Nottingham Forest at home. They've been so consistent. And Wood himself for the shot on target, man, this guy is ridiculous. He has a shot on target in 8 of his 9 Premier League games. In fact, he's just on fire. He scored 7 goals from 4 XG. So overall, from a team perspective, Nottingham Forest are playing better, Wood is on fire, and Nottingham Forest are at home. In fact, the icing on the cake is the fact that West Ham have conceded 8 goals to strikers through 9 games. So I'm sure that Wood will probably score in this game because that's what he's been doing, and that's why we're going to be backing Nottingham Forest to win or draw, Wood to get the shot on target, and under 5 goals in the match on Bet365. Our second best bet takes us out to Anfield, where Liverpool are going to be at home hosting Brighton, and we're going to be backing the Egyptian king Mohamed Salah to get a goal or an assist, over 1 goal in the game at Liverpool to win or draw. A lot of the heavy lifting is going to be done by Mo Salah. The over 1 and Liverpool double chance is just the icing on the cake, really, to get the odds up, and we're going to be taking this on FanDuel, and I love this bet so much, I'm going to be making it a 2-unit play. Brighton are Salah's second favorite opponent of all time, where he's picked up 15 goals and assists against them in 14 matches, and he's picked up at least 1 goal or assist in 11 of 15 games against them. The reason why Salah loves this fixture so much is that regardless of who is in charge of Brighton, the coach usually likes to adopt high line tactics, and that means that it's going to be congested in the midfield. It's going to leave a lot of space in behind for Salah or Diaz, Gakpo, or Darwin to run into, and that suits Mo down to a T. Just to make sense to be backing him, especially at home. Liverpool have a very strong record. Van Dijk has a ridiculous undefeated streak at home, so his record is ridiculous. I think he's only lost like 4 or 5 games at Anfield in the Prem over the course of his like 5 or 6 years with Liverpool, so nothing to really stress about in terms of the double chance. The over 1 just makes sense. It should be a back and forth solid game. Even when Liverpool played Brighton in the EFL Cup and both teams produced their backup lineups, there were still a lot of goals in the game. Now you could say that that shouldn't really play a factor, but either way, I just still expect goals in the match, and that was good confirmation bias. There's high lines, it suits Mo very well, and their captain Lewis Dunk is supposedly injured. Now, there was a positive update from the press conference where their best player in João Pedro should potentially be coming back into the squad, as well as their captain Lewis Dunk. He might be with the squad, but I still expect both of those guys to not be in the team, and I expect them to come back after the international break. And so without their 2 most important players, really, apart from Mitoma, I think that Brighton don't really have a chance. So Liverpool are just playing all their opponents at the right time. They played Arsenal without Odegaard and Saka. Now they're going to be playing Brighton without João Pedro and Lewis Dunk. Like, how could they lose this game, especially at home? I think so far this season, Liverpool have won or drawn 12 of their games in the Champions League and in the Prem. So they've been cooking. Even in the EFL Cup matches, they've been winning all of their games there as well. And the interesting thing to think about is that Brighton have a zonal weakness defensively from opposing wingers, and that just suits Salah down perfectly. And in fact, I think the Liverpool lineup will have Darwin starting up top, Gakpo starting on the left rather than Diaz, because Diaz actually played 90 minutes in the EFL Cup, whereas Gakpo was subbed off early, and then Salah obviously starting on the right wing position. So I think regardless of who's playing in what positions for Liverpool, I still think Salah is the main man. 90 minutes on the pens. We're going to be backing the Egyptian king. And once again, I'm going to be making this a 2-unit play because I love it so much. Come on, Mo Salah. Carry me home, boy. Our third best bet takes us out to the Leicester and Ipswich game. Now, this is going to be the type of match that's the classic relegation 6-point battle. Not only would you get 3 points, you're also taking 3 points away from your relegation rival. So that's why it's called a classic relegation 6-pointer, and I think this is going to be a very important game. and I would expect it to be slightly cagey in the beginning. Maybe the managers could be very defensive, but I really just don't see that. Every time I expect that, it never really happens because somehow there's going to be a goal that goes in, regardless of how or who scores it. As soon as the first goal goes in, it changes the game state of the game. And there's always going to be goals in these matches. Even if it's two terrible teams, they'll find a way to score goals. And in this match, we're going to be backing one of these star boys on Leicester. And he's actually on loan from Brighton. And you probably never even heard of him. But his name is Facundo Buonanotte. Now at Brighton, he would have been struggling to get game time given that Brighton are not in Europe. And they're just stacked with so much depth in so many positions across the pitch, especially in the right wing position at Brighton, because they have Solly March, who is their main guy, but he's injured for a while. Then they had Minte, their new signing, and they have Adingra who could play there. So Buonanotte was just surplus to requirements, but he's not getting minutes because he's not that great. It's just the other players in that position at Brighton are so good. And so he got loaned out to Leicester and he has been cooking. In fact, he has a shot on target in 4 of his last 5 games, playing 80 plus minutes in 5 of his last 5 games, and he's actually taken 2 shots in 5 of his last 5 matches. So he's in form. He's actually scored some clutch goals for them as well in some of the more interesting matches to give them some results. You can see that in the beginning part of the season, he had to earn the trust of his teammates as well as the coaches, so his minutes weren't really there. The teammates weren't really passing the ball to him whenever he was open because they didn't know if they could trust him or not, but you can see that the ball is going to him. He's becoming very talismanic for Leicester, and so we're going to be backing him to take 2 shots. He's hot. He's been doing it recently, and in these types of matches, I do want to be backing the best players on the pitch, and I feel like he is actually the best player. So I want to be backing him for 2 shots, over 1 goal in the game for 1.85 odds on Bet365. This is just a very good value bet that I really like. I think the odds on it are very good. He's been really consistent, and if you haven't heard of him, well, hopefully this isn't going to be the first time that we talk about him. Our 4th and 5th best bets of the game week take us out to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where we're actually going to be backing Aston Villa. In fact, I love Son so much. When I look at the underlying data, he's just the best finisher in the Prem. He's actually better than Haaland, but he's not 100% fit, and I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. And Spurs without Son are just not the same team. The rest of the players in that team is just bang average, like genuinely, apart from Kulusevski breaking out this year, Brennan's kind of average, Madison's kind of average this year. No one else has really stepped up to say, hey, I'm going to carry this club. And that's why Spurs have just been so inconsistent. They beat Man City's B team in the EFL Cup, but they dropped points to Palace. They dropped points to Brighton from a winning position. Spurs, we just don't know what's going to happen, but they always have stronger performances at home. But because Spurs are at home, I think that's where the value lies. And that's why I really want to be backing Aston Villa, because regardless of if they've been home or away, or if they're in the Premier League or the Champions League, Aston Villa's performances have been very, very solid. In fact, Aston Villa have played 12 games in the Prem and in the Champions League, and they've only lost 1 of them. And in the 1 game they lost, it was to Arsenal, and that's respectable. And in that match, they actually had a very strong performance. And if we look at Aston Villa in the Champions League, they're first. They're first of the entire Champions League. That's incredible. They beat Bayern, bro. Man, Aston Villa have been so underrated. They're so consistent. I really rate the manager more than any of the players. I just trust Unai Emery. And so in this match, in order to explain the bet, I wanted to explain that I'm just higher on Aston Villa. I think the odds in general are just wrong for this game. And so I want to be backing Aston Villa. So just breaking down the bets, the first bet is going to be a 2-unit play because we're going to be backing Aston Villa plus 1.5 and Liverpool 0.5. So the Liverpool plus 0.5 basically means Liverpool to win or draw. I explained it earlier, but basically that's my lock of the week. And Aston Villa plus 1.5 at 1.375 odds are just really good value on Bet365, and if you combine them together, that's 1.5. So I'm going to be placing 2 units on that, and that'll hopefully get us 1 unit profit. And we're going to be taking that 1 unit of profit and we're going to be putting it on the second bet in the game, which is going to be Aston Villa plus 0.5 and Liverpool plus 0.5. And that means we need Liverpool to win or draw and Aston Villa to win or draw. So basically, as long as Aston Villa don't lose by 2 or more goals, we'll hit the first bet, which is 2 units, and we'll hopefully be able to get an Aston Villa win or draw so we can cash both bets. That's the dream scenario. So it's kind of like having a free bet on Aston Villa to win or draw as long as they don't lose by 2 goals. And honestly, I just don't even see them losing. I genuinely feel like Aston Villa are more reliable, they're more consistent, and if Son is not on the pitch in the last 20 or 30 minutes, I think Aston Villa will be able to turn the game around. Even if they're down 2-0, I think Unai Emery will find a way to get the job done. And I think there will be goals in this game, and I should usually be backing Spurs. I actually really have a soft spot for Spurs because of Son, but in this specific situation, I think I really got to be backing Aston Villa. From the performances they've been putting up so far this season, when we look at their underlying data between both teams, it's very similar. So I just feel like the odds are wrong. It should be a pick'em game, but it's not. And that's why I'm going to be backing Aston Villa for the value. I'm a simple man with simple bets. I know I'm going to be backing the Egyptian King at home. We're backing Aston Villa to win or draw because they're probably the better team in better form right now. We're backing Buonanotte, an up-and-coming star in a relegation 6-point battle. And we're going to be backing Chris Wood, who's been absolutely so consistent this year. So the riskiest one is probably the Buonanotte one, but honestly, that's probably my second favorite one of them all. So I think when I'm looking at the bets, I really like it. I'm hoping that we continue that momentum that we had in Game Week 9 into Game Week 10. And you know what? I'm such a small content creator. If you could go out there and just hit the like button, drop a comment section in the comment section down below. It means so much to me. Thank you so much for all your support and hoping that Game Week 10 is all that you dreamed it to be.